Why do you need an apocalypse watch? Well, chances are you never will. But hey, if a watch is good enough for the apocalypse, it's certainly going to be good enough for arduous challenges, multi-day hikes, expeditions, or a range of unexpected catastrophes. Now, I actually came across the term apocalypse watch, seeing an Instagram post by Tactical Survival UK. Yeah, check out his account. It's some fantastic content. But it got me thinking about, do I own an apocalypse watch? And yes, I do. What is the perfect apocalypse watch for you? Let's talk about requirements. So it needs to be robust at a tactical level, as in getting dinged daily, as you make your way foraging for supplies, but also robustness in the 10, 20, 30 year range. So then we're talking about durability. So it needs to obviously tell time. I don't think date and day of the week are important. A smartwatch or a Garmin is going to be great as long as you've got power or access to battery. So absolutely, shit hits the fan. I will definitely keep using my Garmin, but I know that it ain't going to last me year after year after year, right? Because I cannot depend on having continued access to power. And moving on to G-Shock Sports, very popular military watches. As far as I'm concerned, not a suitable candidate for an apocalypse watch because they simply don't last long enough. It needs to last at least 10 years, sort of set it and forget it. And the G-Shocks don't. They typically run out after a sort of year and a half, 2 years. They go up to 10 years, but at that point you've got a huge watch and that bulk is taken up by battery. But obviously 8 years down the line, you've got that bulky watch that is 80% run out. So you're just carrying that weight and size around for no real reason. So G-Shocks are out. So now we get to the suitable categories. And there's two categories. Now I'm going to start with the one that I personally did not choose, but is absolutely suitable. And it's the analog Quartz Solar. Analog, it's just clearer than digital numbers where you may need to do a double take. Quartz is a highly accurate movement, and for affordability versus accuracy, you can't beat it. And then the solar means a really long power reserve. It's set it and forget it. So it's extremely suitable. So specifically, we'll look at the Citizen Eco Drive Pro Master Diver, which is actually the one that Tactical Survival UK showed in his post. It's ISO 6425 compliant. It then guarantees you 3 things: guaranteed water resistance, 2, shockproofness, anti-magnetism, and condensation. That's another thing that's tested for. Thirdly, legibility. So the watch face must be easily readable in low light conditions. This particular watch, the metal is brushed, taking away some of the shine. Aluminium bezel, it's light and it does the job. It's got a mineral clock face, not as scratch resistant as sapphire, but in terms of value for money, great choice. And I wouldn't mind a few scratches on a tool watch. So that is a great candidate for apocalypse watch. I mean, you're done. It's got a dive time rotating bezel, which means you can do intraday timing. You know, say someone is going out on a recce and you say to them, well, if you don't radio in 30 minutes, then I will start moving to a rendezvous point 30 minutes from now. No beeps or alerts. It's just a simple, low-tech, extremely reliable way to remember a time, even when you're fatigued or under intense pressure. If you set that bezel in the right way, you know, with a single look, you know exactly at what time you're supposed to either get in touch with someone or start moving to an ERV. So that's a great additional complication. So this is the Citizen is just one example, but if you look for analog Quartz Solar, there is a range of options available, probably starting at about, if you're in the UK, 100 quid up to the sort of 400 range. Now let's talk straps. Great, I love this topic. So for an apocalypse watch, rubber, metal, possibly titanium. However, for an apocalypse watch, I want a NATO strap. They're called NATO straps because they come from the military world and they are very much part of NATO issued watches. So that tells me that they would have been tested in the field for durability, lightweight, a really simple, affordable durable solution. Come in a range of colors, and yeah, love a NATO strap. Now we're getting to mechanical automatic watches, self-winding. Okay, so this is the category that my Apocalypse watch is in. These are mechanical watches, so they do not have a battery at all. They're either self-winding or in some cases windy-uppy. There is nothing to track. There is no electric current going through that watch. Mechanical watches, so they're my choice. They will never make a bleep. Never any issues with running out of battery. So we're going to zoom in on one in particular. The Seiko Capt Willard Prospects on a NATO strap. So the Capt Willard is called Capt Willard because it features in the film Apocalypse Now, where Martin Sheen wears it. The association with the Vietnam War is very strong. Whilst it was never issued by the American Army, it was for sale at PXs. So obviously the supermarkets available to the troops. It was an affordable watch that was considered better than the army issued ones, and it was very popular. And you can see why, because it's a fantastic watch. It looks great. It's still being made today, this 6105. I mean, it's reissued. It's not been in continuous production. Actually, an original one from the early 70s or late 60s, I mean, they started making them in 68, to this day tends to go for at least $1,000, and I've seen them. And even if you go onto eBay now, the original ones, you'll see them priced anywhere between £1,000 and £2,500. That's the ones from back then. So they've even retained their value pretty well, and it just goes to show the tremendous how much loved these watches are, and it's for a reason. They are fantastically good value for money. Set and forget, because again they are mechanical, automatic, self-winding, so as you move your wrist, you're actually winding that spring. Now if you look at the Capt Willard, you're looking probably these days in pounds, probably between the £600 and £1,500 mark. So they've been reissued with a 70-hour power reserve, so they're not cheap. But having said that, they will retain some value, and they will quite literally last decades. Now, if you look at the price category below that, look into the Seiko 5 Sports. I had one for years, which I ended up giving to my son on a NATO strap. They are cheaper. I think sort of 200 to 300 mark, fully automatic. I've had it for years. It's like a car that never needs a service, right? It just works. If you're looking for British made, look at the CWC. I mean, look at these babies. Fixed bars, which is very much true to that military spec, specifically made for a NATO strap. The CWCs were issued by the British military. They used to issue, I think, Rolexes, and then as those went up in price, they were looking for an alternative, and British company CWC got that order. Famously, the first batch went to the SBS, so they're very much known as the SBS Divers. Oh, and actually in the Falklands. So they were worn by lots of Marines out there who had them issued. So CWC watches are British designed. They're actually Swiss made. So they purchased the movements from Switzerland. Either Quartz, that's not solar quartz, so that wouldn't be suitable for an Apocalypse watch because it has a battery and that will need changing every so many years. But they do automatic movements as well, and that obviously would be suitable. But they are not cheap, and you are paying a bit for the branding and for that wonderful narrative behind it. Point being, pound for pound, they're not going to be as amazing value as the Seiko, but then in return, you've got a fantastic bit of history. Tudor FXD. So these are made by the same company that makes Rolex, and they absolutely share the build quality of the case. So Tudor was conceived by Hans Wilsdorf, who's the founder of Rolex. And Rolex obviously famously made in Switzerland, as is Tudor. They make their own cases, their own movements, but they fall under the same umbrella as Rolex. And they were conceived to be a more affordable entry-level watch. So the Tudor FXD Black in particular is one that I consider an amazing apocalypse watch as well. It traces its history to the Navy SEALs. I love how stealthy it looks. The brushed metal, the subdued black clock face, the fact that it just tells time, yet it has that bezel where you can do intraday timekeeping. That is an amazing quality watch. However, it's not flash. It's not shiny. It is subdued. 99% of people will think you have a pretty normal watch. Nice looking nonetheless, but 10 years from now, if you never get it serviced, it will still be highly accurate. I mentioned the brand Rolex.
You understand, you're sitting on a helo and you look across and it's, it's all your idols and all of them have Rolexes on. And I just thought it was the coolest thing, and I want to be part of that club. And when you finally could be part of that club, I don't know, it really just cemented everything in there. I swapped out the strap for an Everest band a couple years ago just to make it a little more functional. I trashed that watch. I did everything with it. I don't know how many jumps I have on it, how many dies, but I wore it for everything and never had an issue with it. You get what you pay for.
So I do believe that they would make a good apocalypse watch. Whilst the first reaction of people is, oh, they're very expensive, you could argue actually they're the cheapest of the lot, because they maintain their value more than any other watch brand. A steel Rolex, typically, you would not expect to lose any money on that at all. Go online and look. From the 80s, the 90s, the noughties. So I would say if you get a Rolex, get a Submariner, and probably get it secondhand because they are almost impossible to get new. So yes, it's a big capital layout, but pound for pound, they are by far the cheapest because you're not actually spending that money, which also speaks to the bartering power. In a shit it's a fan scenario, that is an incredibly powerful bartering tool that will get you a vehicle that will get you not a few days, but a month of supplies. Okay, right now, a sub in the world that we live in, if it's in good condition, you'll sell for 10 grand. So you lose your job tomorrow, that gives you that runway, if you actually do need to convert that to cash very quickly, walk to a dealer. If you do go the Rolex route, I'd say go Submariner, because it also has got that great intraday timekeeping. I'd probably go for a no date. Don't need a date. I just like it, makes it more stealthy. So what is the perfect apocalypse watch? And the thing is, there isn't really one answer for it. If I had to narrow it down, I mean, the Capt and Willard, it's battle tested in the jungle, and as many will tell you, it doesn't get tougher than that, because it was absolutely competing with other brands. It rose to the top because it was simply the best value for money watch at that time from 68 onwards that was available for the troops. Tudor FXD, I do love how stealthy that is. Definitely be up there. So honestly, for me, it'd be between those two. Now, what actually is my apocalypse watch? Well, guess what? I'm not wearing it right now, and I'm not going to tell you. I think that's part of it, right? It's that stealthiness. An apocalypse watch needs to be stealthy. You need to be under the radar. I don't need anybody to know It is the opposite of a flash watch where you're walking around trying to be leery and impressing people. Do let me know in the comments, what is your apocalypse watch, or what are the pros and cons of some of the watches that we've discussed today. Do let me know your thoughts. As always, see you in the hill.